introducing Mr. Manjunath R. Lakshmi Narayan, who will be our keynote speaker for today. A little introduction about Mr. Manjunath. So, he is basically a global leader in cloud communications, helping businesses accelerate their digital transformation as a part of Ericsson. Mr. Manjunath established the Vonyaj Center for Excellence in India and shaped its growth to be vital and strategic unit within Vonyaj global businesses. So may I request Sir to please come up on the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I believe this is the first session of the IMC 2024 today. It's always good to be here. It's a pleasure to meet you all. We have a very interesting and relevant topic today to discuss on orchestrating future connectivity with open APIs. All right. I'm going to be touching upon a few topics today relevant to the API business in telecom. We'll talk about that. We'll spend more time on network APIs specifically and what are some of the challenges that we are facing in that industry today, and some exciting announcements that's happening around that space as well. But before we get into the core of today's topic, I want to take a minute to talk about Vonage. So Vonage is a global leader in cloud communications. We are a SaaS product company having products around multiple communications domains in CPaaS, Communications Platform as a Service, UCaaS in the Unified Communications domain, contact center software, as well as conversational commerce. So we have a number of APIs in the form of messaging, audio, video, and so on and so forth in the communications CPaaS domain. We are a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader in the visionary in the CPaaS space, and having reached to about 190 plus countries and over 800 carrier relationships that we have, and 1.6 million developers around the globe. We are now part of Ericsson, very proudly to be part of Ericsson, and together we are unleashing, entering a brand new market in the network APIs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So how does the market look today in the telecom APIs? So today, according to the estimates, we are roughly about 350 plus in the billion in the revenue as it stands today, growing steadily and slated to touch about over close to 900 in the next 4 to 5 years, as they say. North America is leading the pie, and Asia Pacific is having the title of the fastest growing market today. Typically, we segment the APIs into various categories. Messaging is a category, payment, IoT, IVR, and so on and so forth. And from a technology standpoint, obviously 5G is driving many of the use cases, at least in the relevant to today's context. And at the application layer level, we are talking about adopting microservices architecture and serverless architecture being the prevalent in the industry today. Traditionally, the APIs, if you look at the network APIs on the telecom domain, it used to be B2B, right? And then in the last 10 years or so, a little more than a decade, we got into the space of messaging, voice, audio, video, and APIs which are consumer facing. Today, we already entered into a brand new focus area. That is the network domain. So there's a lot of hidden gems within the network that are yet to be exposed and made available to consumers like you and me. This can be in the form of quality on demand, right? You want instant speed on your network while playing a game, or it can be location services without the use of GPS, and so on and so forth. So we're going to be spending some time to talk about some of these use cases today. So network APIs, basically, essentially, the market of the network APIs, or any API for that matter, is all about developers, right? So you reach the developer ecosystem as much as possible and make life easier for them to try out the network APIs and put them into the enterprise applications. And just like traditional APIs, the telecom APIs are also becoming open, and so are the network APIs as well. So I want to talk to you about a particular problem. It's very unique to the industry today, right? The network traffic in the industry is growing at a fairly steady rate. In fact, it's growing at a very steady rate. But the revenues for the CSPs are not keeping up to the same pace today. Right? One of the reasons for this could be the pricing models that is prevalent today, which are largely decoupled from the network traffic per se. So there needs to be a way for the CSPs to unlock these revenues. And the only way to do that in the current times is to tap into use cases which are in the network space and try to monetize that and make money out of it, charge the consumers to be able to use those differentiated products. In order to do this, there needs to be some kind of alignment in the industry. So there are two broad alignments that is shaping up in the industry today. One is the adoption of Open Gateway as a framework. And then the second one is the adoption of the Camara API. So both Camara and Open Gateways kind of go hand in hand. Camara is more focused on the APIs, standardization, development, and testing. And the Open Gateway framework is more about how to access the networks using an open source platform. This is a big opportunity for us, right? Estimates say it's a 30 billion direct revenue to be absorbed very soon, and it can multiply into additional revenue for our customers, touching about 300 billion today. So some of the use cases that I'd like to talk about is, today you have, how do you log in today? Using OTPs, right? You go into a website, you get an OTP, and OTP is prone to frauds. It can be intercepted, it can be used by scamsters. As we have ways to overcome this by using SIM-based authentication, right? We call it silent authentication. Point of sale, how difficult it is to some of the point of sale applications. You're in a gaming arena, and you want to make instant sales there, and you don't have the right amount of speed to be able to make that point of sale. So, instant boost of speed. Location verification, very important. Location verification, today, the way we all know location verification is by the use of GPS. But guess what? Location is already available in the network, right? So how do you triangulate and how do you make that piece available to the end user so that you don't have to use GPS as one of your requirements whenever location comes into place? So a number of use cases like this are coming up. These are not B2B, these are all B2C, right? That's a key difference in terms of trends that we are seeing today. So these outcomes, if you want to achieve these outcomes, they have their own challenges. Today, if you heard our Prime Minister speak, he spent a lot of time about standardization, right? So he said that's a key thing in the industry today. If you want to drive APIs at scale, you need to have this standardization today. He also spoke about security quite a lot. Standardization is not just about technical standards. We're talking about standardization in regulations, privacy aspects, and standardization at a holistic level, not purely at a technical level. Integration and interoperability. In order to consume the APIs, the ease of integrating this into applications is going to be very vital. And today we live in a very interconnected society, so interoperability between applications becomes important. So the future of this is going to be more about adopting these standards in the form of open gateways that will drive the acceleration of network APIs. And the key differentiator, according to me, is going to be security, keeping security at the forefront of your design, and nuances of regulatory aspects. India coming up the new Data Protection Act is vital when you look at it from an India markets perspective. So what are we doing about these challenges? So there's got to be some way to address it. Many companies have tried it in a different way. I'm very glad to announce, I don't know, some of you may have read this announcement recently. So 12 of the major CSPs, that includes Airtel, Vodafone, Jio from India, have come together and partnered with Ericsson to form a new venture. And this new venture is basically going to be aggregating and selling network APIs at scale to all the developers. And the developer ecosystem that we're talking about is not just limited to CPaaS providers like Vonage. It's going to be including hyperscalers, independent software vendors, and even system integrators as well. And we are very proud that Vonage is going to be one of the early bird. We are going to one of the first channel partners in this new new venture. The new venture is going to be focused on generating the supply, so in terms of aggregating the network APIs and making it available at scale. OneEdge will be participating on the demand side. So we have a robust network platform, CPaaS platform, which we're going to leverage to make sure that these APIs are reachable to the developer ecosystem at scale. So possibilities of use cases, right? I spoke about some of them. Let me touch upon a couple of more on the slide. Cloud gaming. So let's say you're a gamer, you want to play on the go, and today net gaming, is a network hogging application. So you want to use it, you want to have high bandwidth, right? And you don't want to pay for the high bandwidth all the time. So using network slicing and exposing that at the end of the users like you and me, you're going to be able to provide the service to make an instant boost to your network. I spoke about other use cases like fraud protection. So SIM swap is a very relevant fraud that is happening today. So capabilities to detect SIM swaps is going to be key whenever you send generate applications that has payment gateway interfaces. So OneEdge has a number of APIs already available in the market today, and we are very excited to be one of the early entrants into this market. So I'm going to be kind of ending the session here. There's lots to talk about it. You can keep going on and on. I'm sure the panelists coming up next are going to dwell more into these details, and wishing you all a great session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Manjunath, for the wonderful session. And now let's open the room for our first panel discussion today on orchestrating future connectivity with Open API. We have today with us Mr. Nilek Kumar from TCS, who is the Product Head, Cognitive Networks Operations Platform. Mr. TK Hitesh from Vodafone Idea, who is the CIO. Mr. Ashutosh Madan from Google Cloud, who is the Principal Architect Telco. Mr. Ankit Srivastava from Bharti Airtel, who is the Chief Architect. And we have our moderator for today, Mr. Abhijit Atle, who is partner KPMG Digital Solutions and Strategy and Insights. So, gentlemen, if you could please come on the stage. Thank you.
So first of all, thank you for joining us for this panel discussion. I think excellent insights already provided in the keynote speech that we had. I think, and some of the points that I noted there is the amount of opportunity, the volume that we have is just huge. But if you see where we are currently in terms of adoption of Open API, it has to be said that it has so far met with limited success. We still have a lot to do. So I think what we will do is we'll try and touch upon some of those aspects during the discussion. We'll start with, what role Open API can play in creating ecosystems and ecosystem play. What needs to happen in the network side to do the integration effectively. Things to look out for, the security consideration, the data privacy aspect that Manjunath just spoke about. And then more importantly, in the future, what we need to look out for and how this is set to evolve in the era of 5G and beyond. So I think we'll broadly cover this. So maybe just getting into it, Ashu, if I can come to you. Some of your thoughts around the evolution of API economy. And I mean, it need not necessarily be from the telco point of view, the whole, as you see from outside in perspective, and also its impact, especially now in telecom domain that you see that it's likely to have in the future.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for setting the context, Abhijit. Yeah, so and Manjunath, I think you covered very nicely, right? I think the overall opportunity here. So the API economy, right, I think is taking off, and telco is no exception to that. As Abhijit, you mentioned, right, I think they have been, telcos have been trying APIs for quite some time, but with limited success so far. But I would say that the time is now ripe, right? And I would say there are a number of reasons why I think the time is ripe. One is that there are two broad sides of telco, right? There is the IT side of the telco and there is the network side of the telco. Yeah. IT side of the telco is kind of adopting the modern enterprise architectures, which is microservices-based architecture for quite some time, and they're already well tuned to that. Network is where now with the 5G coming and the whole premise or the foundation of the 5G being a service-based architecture, and the network slicing, right, which is the key functionality of 5G, right, providing the foundational capabilities where all these capabilities that the network has can be exposed in a granular manner as the need arises. So I think there's a technology aspect which I see is very, very important because technology is now ripe. The second important reason I would say is that telcos traditionally have been very hardware-centric business, right? But I would say that over the last few years, both on the IT side as well as the network side, there has been a significant shift in terms of softwareization, I would say, on the network side also. And that also reflects in the skill sets that the telcos have at this point of time. And the third, probably, and the most important reason I would say is that telcos are very open to partnerships now, right? Which was probably more of a provider-vendor relationship earlier, is now becoming more of a partnership relationship. The kind of a partnerships which are there, and the open API, the success of the open API depends on the whole premise of partnership, right? So telcos are now very used to partnerships, and I think that is another major reason. So I think there are three reasons which are very important, and I feel that right now the situation is very ripe, right, for the situation to take off. Yeah.
Right. So let me take that thought forward, especially the aspect of the collaboration and also the open API that we spoke about. And I think Manjunath also spoke about the consortium that has been now formed. So maybe, Hitesh, if I could come to you around how can this standardization of API and collaboration between the operators create ecosystem play, and what benefits do you think we can gather out of that for the telco community as a whole?
Yeah, thanks, Abhijit. And as I think keynote Manjunath mentioned and Ashutosh also mentioned about the way the telco environment got completely changed from a OSS, BSS model which we are used to operate for ages. And when the way the technology has changed, software driven has come, API driven, cloud and services, everything started coming up, is when the entire ecosystem also changed. Like as I mentioned, from a vendor relationship, we're into multiple partnerships. So many startups started using our services and started new products and services and all that. But yes, on maybe we look at separately on an IT area. Yes, as I said, we used to follow enterprise architecture guidelines, TM Forum, Open API guidelines, and all that, which helped us when the digital transformation or digital era came. Yeah. We need to provide services through app, web, and all that. Then give the omni-channel experience and all that. When we're creating whether it's a digital experience layer or an application interface layer, most of our APIs were built with the TM Forum Open API guidelines. So easy to extend it for more channels, easy to extend it for more type of applications or even up to network, it has helped us. And slowly what we are seeing that same revolution started happening even to a network side, where easily whichever applications and systems are moving on to more of a software driven one. A simple example may be a prepaid recharge. Right. It was once, it is you can say only on an operator, the particular outlet where the customer has to go and do a recharge. Today, there is no such dependency. You can go to Euronet, you can go to a bank, you can go to a Paytm website or an Amazon app and do a recharge. Because all we have done it is again opened up APIs for them to do the business. Again, it's not that when these platforms are connected to all of the operators, they are not using different API. All of us have standardized the recharge API. So we need to also, we don't have to monitor multiple API coming from multiple partners. So over a period of time, this evolution has started. When we started now getting into OTT, again, the underlying network remained the same, BSS systems remain the same. Only more and more standardized APIs we started opening up across operators, because the consumer have the experience the same thing, irrespective which operator they are taking it, which OTT platform they are taking it. Yeah. So you look at it, the way API and then more it is open API and the standardized API coming up. Definitely, there's a lot of cost optimization. There's a lot of faster time to market, and then all this benefit, and then the larger ecosystem start getting built up right now. Yeah. And this is a revolution what we right now start seeing in the API area.
So some great examples, really, especially prepaid recharges, how they are evolving, and also the moment you have the standardized approach across multiple operators, it just becomes that easy and it kind of builds that ecosystem. So let's build on that thought, and maybe Ankit, if I can come to you around the ecosystem play. Once, as Hitesh said, that we are already witnessing the standardization, and that becomes then the foundation for the ecosystem play. What's your thoughts around how those ecosystems are likely to evolve going forward?
Sure. So the way I see it is telcos have always been built on 4 key strengths, right? Which is the customer, the data, the network, and then distribution. And they've been building adjacencies, business model around the adjacencies for a while. You can see CPaaS, financial services, AdTech, MarTech. A lot of these have already become significant revenue streams for telcos. Standardized APIs are going to follow the same direction. And essentially, we'll see a lot of ecosystem plays creating new revenue opportunities as well as accelerating innovation. Let's start with the simplest use case, which is 5G, right? So quality on demand, simple gaming experiences, guaranteed quality. Then you take it up a notch, you go to mission critical applications, where 5G slicing, where you provision a slice dedicated to in the network. These will have use cases in, let's say, autonomous vehicles, healthcare, a lot of such use cases. Another place we're seeing, I feel, where we will see significant growth is in the fraud or in the fintech space, right? Everything from carrier billing, multiple APIs powering signals for fraud detection, SIM swap, device swap, Manju spoke about these, customer on call, all of these will add significant signals which will help us identify whether it's a fraud. Silent authentication, which is basically number verification, is going to be another critical one which will help in, let's say, particularly in high-value transactions in fintech. We'll see location verification APIs power a lot of industries and logistics, ride-hailing, even retail. There will be analytical APIs which we can use to, let's say, give marketers or advertisers contextual advertising, and all of these, right? I see it forming into like a partner portal or a API marketplace where developers can come or third parties can also come and then seamlessly register, onboard, take care of integration, billing, all of that, and then use these APIs in their own use cases, right? In their own product use cases. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of good examples there, and clearly a lot more can be done. I think one other topic that Manjunath also touched upon is this various initiatives such as Open Gateway, etc. So, and those are kind of fundamentally the building blocks for whatever use cases that you spoke about. So maybe if I could come to you, this one, Nilek, on this, around the Open Gateway initiative, and then what role it is going to play, in your view, in enabling this API take-up as we are discussing.
So essentially, Open API it's not a new subject. It's a very historical subject. While it is being used widely into the web scale environment and less on the CSP environment per se. Historically, if you see the web scale environment, something like Play Stores of Google or App Stores of Apple have provided that kind of elasticity to the application developers community, to be able to create the content and can be sell through all across. While in the telco fraternity, when this aspect came in from a simplification point of view, the major part which Hitesh also touched upon is the standardization and how TM Forum is acting, creating those standards, providing those interfaces for operators to adopt quickly and to be able to create that piece for integrating with the interfaces in the adjacency, be it is horizontal interface or be it is a vertical interface. The aspect of how internal OSS and BSS equipments are traditionally being, siloedly deployed can be integrated among themselves to be able to provide the enterprise level API toward the external world, which let's say Voyage and Ericsson's teams are trying to do to be able to do the monetization, is the crux of the complexity which needs to be solved. And that's where considering all layers of network along with IT and telcos grid requires to be flexibly integrated from a standard aspect to be able to provide that web scale related environment for an application developer community. Because if you ask any application in 2010 time frame, it was called which is the killer application for 3G. If people from our community remember
I
those.
remember that.
Exactly. So, which is the killer application of 3G? Nobody was having answer.
Yeah.
And similarly, which is the killer application for Open API from monetization perspective? It is fairly early stage to answer that. So, let the community consume and decide. We need to provide that kind of elasticity in my ecosystem with the simplification of API, with the standards of TM forums or the other APIfications on that line will make a lot of sense on that.
Yeah. No, great insights. And I think these standardizations are already being adopted, and there are few more initiatives that have been spoken. And one of the things that Manjunath also spoke around bringing multiple operators together is really a key one. I think if we take this thought forward around how to then therefore effectively integrate in today's network environment as well as in the future, right? And if you see here that there are considerations around security, data protection, etc., that we are talking about. So operators need to kind of take that into account as well. So maybe if I could come to Ashu, you first for maybe initial thoughts, and also Hitesh, if you can also elaborate in the network, what challenges and what aspects that you think we need to look for when we integrate API-based applications.
Okay, so I think one of the critical aspects about any of the API consumption, right? I think that we talked about, for example, let's say QoS on demand, right? Let's say it is being used for a drone delivery or for a remote healthcare surgery, right? I think, or let's say for a banking transaction, right, where the fraud prevention is an important aspect. So there's a lot of capability that it provides, right? But along with the capability, there's come the responsibility, right, to ensure that the security is absolutely paramount. The good thing and the advantage here is that some of the security parts, right, it's whatever evolution has happened in the IT side of the world or the hyperscaler side of the world in security, I think many of those concepts are easily extensible here, right? I think security is one of the critical aspects, right? For example, let's say a client-side authentication and authorization, right? Some of the standard protocols that are being used, right? Like, for example, Open Authorized Auth 2.0 or Java Web Tokens, right? Some of those concepts are very relevant here. Similarly, having a web application firewall, which is a pretty standard concept with any hyperscalers, right? To ensure that there is no DDoS, so to ensure that, for example, there is no cross-site scripting or, let's say, SQL injection to get the information which is not intended to be received, right? Or let's say throttling by a DDoS protection. So these are the concepts which have been very well matured into the IT side of the world, and they need to be extended here, definitely. So it is not something which is starting from a clean slate, but something that can be built upon, right? And the same typical methodologies which are applied in terms of regular security audits, ensuring that OWS AP top 10 recommendations are followed, the design zero test principles are applied. I mean, absolutely very, very important that those same things are extended to the API world, right? And the good thing is that we will not be starting from ground zero here. Yeah.
Right. So great insights. Hitesh, your thoughts around?
Yeah, I think definitely the security part and other were the most crucial part. But when we look at it mainly from a scaling up point of view, and I think that's where the performance, throttling, metering and everything also comes up. We can't get it open up for anything and everything, because that is also a dangerous thing, because some unwanted type of data loading and even crash the system. Yeah. So one side definitely it is the security and all other aspects comes up, but at the same time we need to have a mechanism for proper throttling, measurement and all that. And I think on top of it there are 2 or 3 other things also, because there's a lot of data will come in, either it's going to write something or a lot of data will go out. So you need to have a clear governance on what to be exposed, what to be given, and then what type of access and information can be provided, because the privacy and all other aspects has to be looked at there. So I think these are some of the key aspects which we see when we make it more open, and then large partners ecosystem coming up and then start consuming these APIs.
Excellent. I think it's clear that there are aspects to look out for. Putting too much control also has its own downturns. Not having control also has its impact. So that's where I think the standardization becomes very important. So Nilek, if I could come to you and around your thoughts around what are the aspects or what key roles you think that the standardization bodies can play. In today's inaugural speech also, PM also gave certain insights around how to make it equitable for everybody. But when it comes to open API specifically, what are your thoughts?
So basically, as you rightly mentioned, PM today mentioned about the key aspect of standards, and I'm also part of the Bharat 60 aspect, and the standards are the sketching of the drawing, and underneath all the applications you are the colorings you have to do to create the product. That is where this piece also is required to be created in a manner that it should be controlled. The way security piece is one of the output of opening your door towards the external world, can cause havoc. DDoS attack is a very simple things we can think of. And similarly, if you are opening entire OSS BSS ecosystem towards something else. But at the same time, if you see what, I'll go back to the TM forum, multiple layers of COM, ROM and SOM, and at the same time it provides you the customer centricity and then IPification of the horizontal layer and vertical layer. And then at the same time, it is not that it is not done per se, we should not be scared of. For example, in India itself, Aadhaar is one of the example of open API.
Yeah.
Right.
And Ashu also mentioned this. Some
Exactly,
concepts
Ashu
already
also.
exist in the IT world.
Exactly.
We have to just kind of adopt it in a way.
What happened into the network side? So IT is a little ahead of the network from a adaptability of programmability of the network. It's a box business historically. Now with 5G, it's coming out to be more programmable and then extensible and software-centric approach. Network side, when the slicing comes into picture, and that slice needs to be extended to the third party, that kind of model needs to be very much standard. And that's where the, let's say, 641 of TM Forum or 665 for their management layer extensibility, so that you can control their simple as an event management or the performance KPI statistics happening on the field can be extended to your partner network, and which they can consume to ensure the SLA which you wanted to assure.
Correct.
Right? So those things can be extended. At the same time, the platform layer, the core of your network should not be extended.
Right.
To avoid any kind of pilferage or data coming in from the
Unwarranted
outside.
attacks on the network. Yeah, understand. No, I think very valid point. I think Ankit, you must also be grappling with these issues in your day-to-day life, right? Only if I wish this could have been standard, and you have got two different solutions. So maybe a thought from your side around what can be done in this.
Sure. I think, telcos have been working on open APIs, dabbling with open APIs for a long time.
Yeah.
And they've not yet seen the traction which they were expecting. And that's the reason behind that is there are specific challenges which telcos face. I think the first is business challenges, right? One could be just the cost of implementing some of these APIs on legacy systems is very high. These legacy systems could be with a vendor. Some of them may or may not even support modern protocols like REST, right? Then again, the second thing is it's very hard to justify the ROI, or it's not very quantifiable from an ROI perspective, because these are not traditional business models. These are different business models, right? You'll have to have it could be revenue sharing, it could be usage based, it could be then subscription based. So from a business perspective, it's hard to get the traction. I think the second one is from an organizational perspective. Again, telcos are used to traditional business models. Just to add to that, they not really known for innovation as such, right? And that is a cultural change which the teams need to drive. There could be skill gaps. You need people who have API expertise in cloud native solutions, expertise in DevOps, right? And I think lastly are the technical challenges. Hitesh spoke about governance, API versioning, decommissioning, backward compatibility, all of those. Security, because these APIs will be provided to third-party developers. That could mean they could be accessed from anywhere in the world. So cross-border data regulations, all of that come into play. So these are the challenges which telcos need to be able to drive through
Yeah.
to be able to move forward with this.
Yeah, no, I think where we are right now is almost at the cusp of, getting certain fundamentals right, and then from there we will see a lot more adoption and also the growth in the future. So we kind of covered what are the things to look out for, what are the standardization requirements that we wish to see. Let's touch upon a bit of the future as well. So Ashi, if I can come to you around, you spoke about the applications which are there as of now, but if you look at 3 years from now, when 5G becomes a pervasive thing and we are already talking about some 6G deployment or something more, how do you see, or what role do you see the API playing at that point in time in creating completely new ecosystems that does not exist today?
We obviously have a great start, right, with let's say 5G itself, because it provides a lot of foundational capabilities. For example, if you look at a phone, right, I think what does a phone have? It has a SIM, it has a number, it has a location, it has a device, right, and it has a lot of applications which are running. So these are here and now, right, which is something that a lot of developers can use and to build use cases cross industry, right, which is already there. Now, what happens in 6G, right? It kind of it augments many of those capabilities and brings in a new players, right? I think if I were to look at a crystal ball, right, and see as to how it is future, which is anyway so hard to see, right? I think one of the things, right, if you look at, and probably I'll go a little bit back into the history, right? When 4G came, I think we're talking about what is there in 3G, right? I mean, what is the use case of 3G, right? When 4G came, the main premise was still providing kind of a high speed, high bandwidth, right? And nobody had really envisaged, right, as to how the app ecosystem would take off, right? So once you have the foundational capabilities available, it's really hard to visualize as to how it will take, right? And I was reading it somewhere, right? I think like as a telcos or maybe as a providers, right, of the technology, I think we should also be more open and more agile in terms of how rather than being very prescriptive as to how it should shape up, being more open and kind of and dynamically see as to how the things are shaping up, right? So I think what all would change, I personally, it's very hard. It's very hard. I know that it's something that everybody is looking forward to, right? But I would rather say that we let the future evolve, right? But the foundations are put in place now.
Right.
The capabilities are there, right? The 5G itself will provide that acceleration, right, which is required. And I think, as Manjunath already mentioned, right, there's a huge opportunity that we're looking at, about $300 billion, right? And I can see it only going up. Yeah.
Hitesh, your thoughts also about the future in terms of how telecom operators would leverage APIs, 5G and beyond? Maybe a far-fetching question, but just
No, I think 5G definitely is an area where the more and more use cases and APIs are going to come up, like Nilay already mentioned about the slicing.
Yeah.
So network slicing, and definitely it will create a private network. So ultimately the role where the telco can play is limited, and more that enterprise customer SIs and the companies will form the solution on top of the sliced network what we given to them. Yeah. Second area, most of the use cases we have seen in all the exhibitors here is the edge computing. Because that's again a large set of use cases coming up. You will be provide those edge capability there. But then remaining after that, what type of use case to build up and what solutions to build up over there is again depending upon the type of APIs and other we are opening up. Again, it's a healthcare solution, but there can be 20 different type, but we can give 20 different APIs for that. So that standardization will come, and then those will come. And I think other area where even today it's already there's a market is with the IoT M2M market, which is going on. Okay, it's 4G, it's sufficient, it's running it on top of it. But with all these technologies coming up with 5G and again maybe in 6G more coming, that may be another segment. Again, it will become a lot of startup ecosystems, a lot of small companies keep making their own solutions, riding on top of other telco network. but they have to build the solutions, manage it, and definitely those solutions will have a lot of AI and other things also coming up,
Capabilities
because that
also.
not be only on based on basic API
APIs.
outcome and all that.
Agree.
So these are the size I think areas where now it is going to go up more. And as well as we put it at more and more open APIs there, then it will be much easy for everyone to maintain, scale, and run.
Very valid. I think you touched upon some of the solutions that you expect to see in the market. So maybe if I could come to you, Nilek, also around what role you think SIs can play in building that solutions or the capabilities that Hitesh just touched upon, so that the APIs can be adopted better in the future. I'm talking about now 5G and beyond. In that era. Today, anyways, SIs are playing their role to the best extent. But in the future, what's your thoughts around the role SIs can play?
Yeah, if you see future, we need to put ourselves little back and look at who is the consumer of the future. Is the Gen Alpha of our home. Our kids, the small kids, which is less than 10 years old, will be the actual consumers 5 years down the line.
True.
Right? And those are already started using metaverse and web 3.x kind of a component, to be very precise. So may not be charged on the gaming front. The token system is already as gaming. So the point here is 3 to 4 years down the line, 5G has already given up in terms of high throughput to the consumer on the enhanced mobile broadband side, and beyond that 5G has not able to monetize the way it was shown, and therefore what could be the applications will come up will be driven by this Gen Alpha consumers. And there the GSIs of the world, something like I come from TCS or any other SI point of view, they need to create themselves as a needle into the complete stitching things, because it's the ecosystem which needs to come up. Individually, CSP, OEMs, multi-OEM, I would say, in the OSS, BSS fabric, if you see, any CSP will find more than 2-digit number, at least 10 plus OEMs are around.
Yeah.
And that's where the GSIs comes into the picture to create that ecosystem white space filling. That's where it's a responsibility, as well as I would say it's a failed history of telco, network and IT fraternity in history, if you see. Which again, coming back to web scaler environment like Google and other web scalers have already done it quite smartly. So in this, it's a very tough question, who will build the cat, who will invest first. I'll go back to Ankit, that it's a cash 22. Everyone wants, the moment you invest, I want the return. Which use case will solve my open API problem? Why should I invest in integrating complete stack? So all these things is requiring very different kind of ecosystem to be built. And yes, GSIs need to adopt the way the web scalers are doing it in a very smarter way, I would say, and identify the platform layer first, and then the applications modules can be picked up.
Right. In fact, I was going to go to Ankit as well on the same question, but maybe a slightly different flavor. What role you expect, not only SI, but the other ecosystem players to play when it comes to telco parlance and open API adoption?
Got it. So I think firstly I see standardized APIs becoming most central to the telco operations. As Hitesh already spoke about 5G and then 5G slicing. But we could also see slices being federated to other between telecom operators. We could also see an exchange coming up and then trading happening on that exchange for slices. Right? Those could be future, maybe not so far-fetched use cases. Right? Additionally, Hitesh again spoke about edge compute. There's a lot of action in that, so I'm just going to skip that one. Another major place is maybe content delivery, right? Because we could do streaming optimization. We know the location of the user. We could partner with OTT content delivery, because that's what takes most of the network anyway. So a lot of optimizations on content delivery could be another place. And I think lastly, we've been holding back. We haven't used the word AI yet.
Yes.
Yeah. So AI-based use cases, predictive analysis, predictive maintenance, predictive demand, and maybe even hyper-personalized experiences. Could be something,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, great insights.
If I just may add here,
Yeah.
nowadays for any AI is the most ingredients in the recipe of any kitchen of any company.
Yeah.
So you'll get good amount of funding when you have AI attached to it. Exactly.
And that's why I wanted to make sure we
Exactly.
we don't miss it.
So what I was just alluding to from a GSI perspective and from a network layer, where all those last 20 years, 2G to 5G, different vendors landscape has came, and we have already started created a platform. We call it CNOPS, Cognitive Network Operation Platform, for which we have created and deployed in one of the operators in India. The journey towards autonomous network is what is the simple way can these open APIs can be connected towards, because ultimately what we want is like seamless experience to the consumers, provide my enterprise the access, secured access of information, and then it should be monetized to the CSP. Per
Yeah.
se, Vodafone here, Idea, Vodafone, and then Airtel, they can vouch for it if they can create a new revenue channel for their network data in an autonomous manner. I do not want it and human intervention, man in the middle in between. And that's where we have created a CNOPS platform, which is on the journey towards that. Question is whether it is completely ready, can it be deployed tomorrow? Answer is no. We have already unlocked the one box out of 4 area.
Right.
So that's where I think the industry will also move from GSI perspective as well as from the ecosystem perspective.
Excellent. Thank you. We have about, I think, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. I would like to open the floor for questions from the audience if we have any. Anyone wants to raise a question, please go ahead. If not, then I would like to thank everybody in the panel for their time and valuable insights. Thank you very much. We will conclude here.